The 7 Hermetic laws offer a symbolic framework for inner alchemy, the transformation of consciousness from within. Rooted in Hermetic tradition, they suggest that the world we experience is profoundly shaped by the way we perceive, interpret, and respond to reality. Mentalism teaches that mind shapes experience. Correspondence reveals patterns between the inner and outer worlds. Vibration reminds us that everything is constantly changing. Polarity teaches us to understand opposites just as different points on the very same spectrum. Rhythm shows us that life moves in cycles of expansion and rest. Cause and effect reminds us that our choices create consequences. And gender describes the complementary forces of creation, such as action and receptivity. Hermes Trismegistus, meaning thrice greatest Hermes, is a legendary figure who emerged from the blending of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, both associated with wisdom, writing, knowledge, and sacred communication. Together, these principles can be approached as a map for inner alchemy. Transform the mind, and your perception of the world transforms along with it. The outer world may remain the same, but the consciousness experiencing it becomes different. And through that change, an entirely different reality can begin to unfold. The all is mind. The universe is mental. It is a profound statement, but it does not simply mean that you can think of a new car and make it appear in your driveway, nor does it mean that the physical world is imaginary. Rather, the principle invites us to contemplate a deeper possibility, that consciousness, or divine intelligence, lies at the very foundation of existence, and that our individual minds are also expressions within a greater whole. A beautiful metaphor is the wave and the ocean. A wave has its own shape. It rises, it travels, and eventually it disappears. Yet it has never been separate from the ocean. The wave is the ocean expressing itself in a particular form. And in a similar way, the individual mind is arising within a greater universal mind. You are an individual, but you are not completely separate from existence. The mind as a lens. Consider two people standing in the same rain. One thinks, "What a miserable day." And the other thinks, "Oh, how peaceful the world feels now when everything slows down." The rain is the same, but the two different experiences have been created by two different minds. This is one of the most practical meanings of mentalism. We do not experience reality completely directly. We experience reality through consciousness, through our beliefs, memories, expectations, fears, desires. All of that act like lenses. And if you believe people cannot be trusted, you will notice evidence of betrayal everywhere you go. If you believe you are incapable, every mistake becomes proof. If you believe you can learn, the same mistake becomes information. The outer event may be identical, but the inner interpretation changes the experience. Do not believe every thought. One of the most important practices is learning to observe your thoughts rather than automatically believing them. Imagine sitting beside a river. Leaves float past you. One leaf says, "You are not good enough." And another says, "Everyone is judging you." And another one says, "Something terrible is going to happen." You do not need to jump into the river and chase every leaf. Just let them pass. Your mind produces thoughts. You are the awareness that can observe them. And when a difficult thought appears, try saying, "I am noticing the thought that," whatever it may be, Instead of I will fail, say, I am noticing the thought that I might fail at this, whatever it may be. That small distinction creates space between consciousness and the thought, the inner mirror. Whenever something upsets you, ask these 3 questions. What happened? Describe the event without interpretation. What did I make it mean? Notice the story your mind created. Is there another way to understand this? This does not mean forcing yourself to believe or think in a positive way when you simply can't. It just means becoming less enslaved by your first interpretation. Perhaps someone did not reply to your message, to your text message. Now, the fact is simply that they did not reply. But your mind, however, might say, he or she doesn't care about me, or they don't want to be with me, I'm not worthy, or whatever it may be. But there may be thousands of explanations. Maybe that person was preoccupied. Maybe that person ran out of battery in his or her phone. Maybe they simply forgot, or whatever it may be. It's the mind adding the structure, so pay attention to it. Learning to separate what happened from what the mind added is a very powerful form of mental discipline, the garden of the mind. Imagine your mind as a garden. Every thought is a seed. You did not choose every seed that entered the soil. Some came from childhood, culture, painful experiences, and other people. But you can choose what you water. Water resentment, and resentment will grow. Water gratitude, and gratitude grows. Water courage, and courage becomes stronger. Therefore, ask yourself each evening, what have I been watering today? What did you repeatedly think about? What did you give your attention to? What kind of conversations fill your mind? Your attention is like sunlight. Whatever you repeatedly illuminate becomes easier to see. Living all is mind. Mentalism does not mean that you control everything through thought. You cannot control other people. You cannot control yesterday. You cannot change yesterday. You cannot guarantee tomorrow. You cannot take that for granted. You cannot prevent every loss, but you can cultivate the mind with which you meet these things. You can choose your response. You can question your assumptions. You can direct your attention. You can practice stillness. You can choose which qualities to strengthen. This is where ancient wisdom becomes practical. Each morning, sit quietly for a few minutes and just observe your mind. And during the day, pause before reacting. And in the evening, ask yourself, what did my mind teach me today? And over time, you may begin to discover that your mind is not merely something that happens to you. It is something you can cultivate. And perhaps this is the deepest practical meaning of the principle of all is mind. You are like a wave arising from an infinite ocean. You are an individual consciousness, yet you belong to something vastly greater than yourself. The world may remain unpredictable, life may remain difficult, but the mind through which you meet life can become clearer, calmer, and wiser. And when you learn to tend that inner world, you begin to discover an ancient truth. Change the way you see, and you begin to change the way you live.